Hi everyone, this is Kristen Ayers, week two's writing assignment for history before 1500. We were asked this week to talk about the different legal code structures between different regions throughout the Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece area. I've looked through a lot, and honestly this week was kind of, I felt a little bit, there's a lot of information, so this is what I came up with. Egyptian law started in the pre-dynastic period. It is based on central cultural values of harmony. This ultimately was beneficial for everyone. It was pretty stringent, but it did, note that leniency was granted on a lot of the rules that were put out there. The way they kind of did it, which I thought was interesting, was basically once you were accused of something, you were considered guilty until you're proven innocent. So obviously very different from like here. There was a set agreed upon set of rules. These were formulated by experts within the judicial system. They weighed evidence that basically, of course, would determine innocence or not. Police officers were the ones who enforced a lot of the rules. The king was basically the major, the ruler of everything, including the court systems. The vizier, who was next in line, he was basically a modern day minister who kind of paid attention to the day-to-day operations. He also did hear court cases, and he also appointed magistrates under him so they could kind of take on some of that workload. So basically they started small at first, so like villages and towns would have their own kind of judicial system. If they couldn't decide, say someone was guilty, and couldn't decide whether or not they were guilty or innocent within their actual trial, it would go up to the next level, kind of like it is now, similar anyways. It would start at a smaller level and then ultimately go from, I guess it starts at, I don't know the judicial system that much, but I know basically you start at a local, and then, if they don't agree upon it, you would go to the next, which ultimately would be state, and then federal if that were to happen. So one major one I compared that to is kind of the Roman law. So with the Roman law, there was basically 4 books. There was a lot of laws for the Roman law, but there were 4 books that covered all the public and private laws, right around 533 EC. These books were created by legal experts, such as the Tribonian, who was a jurist and an advisor. He supervised the region and revised the legal code. There were, like I said, quite a few different laws, quite a few different books within that. The difference between the Egyptian and the Roman, well, one of the many differences, but one of the ones I noted was that the emperor could create the laws. They could, accumulate basically just laws over each other. They could override the laws, and it could be the emperor or any of the magistrates or any other high officials that they have elected. With the Roman, they had it kind of broken down into different types of laws. So there were sacred law, civil law, So that was kind of interesting as opposed to Egyptian. Didn't seem as fragmented as that. The emperor was the judge between the Roman law and the local law, so if it got to that point, he was definitely the final decider. If the person died before the sentencing, their heir would actually be the fill-in for them when they passed. The magistrate first would determine the legal issue and then kind of decide and act almost as an interventionist for both parties. Both parties generally represented themselves, um, but if the magistrate, was able to come to an agreement, then it would stop there, which was obviously would save everyone time. Um, a lot of the punishments were based on social class. So obviously, the lesser infraction or maybe more of a money um, fine as opposed to a physical, go to jail, that kind of thing. If the person getting charged was more wealthy, they could actually make money off of them. Um, Other penalties included prison, confiscation of personal property, death, loss of citizenship, exile, forced labor. Um, so some of the same things, like I said, where the legal experts were the ones that created a lot of the laws for both the Romans and the Egyptians, and ultimately the overseer of everything for the Romans was the head honcho, their emperor, and the Egyptians was the king. Dracos Law was another one I looked at. That was in the 7th century BCE in Athens. He was at the right place at the right time, they said. He was an educated man and was the first to write law for them. The goal ultimately for them to start writing laws and truly enforcing them was to stop feuds in between different groups. He was known very much so for his cruel laws and his bias towards landowners. There was no real written sentence guidelines. It was really mainly based on what he wanted or what his people wanted. In 1629 BCE, Krylon tried to overcome the aristocratic party and ultimately that didn't work so well for him. Um, all of his followers were slaughtered, and he ended up fleeing to his father-in-law. Um, he was known for really, like I said, punishing trivial crimes by death. Hammurabi was something we looked at. It was very comprehensive. There was 282 laws in there. The code list is all the offenses and all the punishments, so it's very, upfront. It definitely improved the infrastructure of the area. And in terms of the Ten Commandments, it was given to the Israelites by God, who was told basically to only worship Him. It covered a lot of major things such as murder, infidelity, theft, just to name a few. And basically, the punishment would follow the crime after that. So, yeah, so obviously there are some similarities and differences between all of those. But yeah, I hope everyone has a great week and stay safe and can't wait till next week. Thanks.